Hello, so today is September 23rd and we're going to work on turning over and planting up the beds for the fall. This bed up here in the front, I had pulled out, I had peppers there over the summer. I pulled them out, put down a layer of compost and tarped it until I was ready to get my transplants in the ground. So today we're going to take the tarp off, get things cleaned up, and throw our new transplants in. So I got the tarp moved over here, and this is what our bed looks like. I'm going to come through with a hoe, get some of these weeds out that kind of trailed over on the edge, and we'll be ready to go. And once you start looking at where your garden started before summer in Florida when the grass grows, and you start peeling it back, cleaning things up, you start noticing how much the grass actually overtakes your garden. This is the border where it was supposed to be. I got this cleaned out over here in the sweet potatoes. I've left it, but you could see the difference of how far, even with me trying to stay on top of it, it's crept in. So for bed prep and for maintaining the garden, these are my two tool powerhouses. This one's just kind of a standard stirrup hoe. This really is kind of my heavy duty. I maintain my borders with it. I'm able to, like in here, really get everything out, maintain. I do this between the rows just to keep down on compaction and to get on the edges. And this one is my push-pull hoe. This thing has been game-changing, especially over the summer with the weeds, because with this I'm able to get in between, to take that and go in between the different plants. And because the way it's shaped with it being flat, I don't have the same risk like I would on the stirrup hoe of cutting into my drip irrigation. And then it also allows me with the point to have fine precision because I have my okra double planted. This first one isn't, but the rest are. So with this, I could get up and I could weed in between. I got a weed today, that's on today's agenda. But I could get up in here pretty good and clear things out without a lot of drama. And I'm not on my knees getting down here weeding and cleaning things up. So this tool has been a game changer, and ultimately this is really all I use, so you should be good to go with just these. And I wanted to introduce you to our newest garden helper. This is Lucy May. We got her yesterday. She was taken to the groomer by her owner, and the owner never came back. And when the groomer went to track her down, her mom, they found out that she had passed away, and the family wasn't able to take her in, and so we ended up adopting her and bringing her home. So this is our sweet little Lucy May. This is my Tabasco plant, and it did real good this year. We made a ton of hot sauce, but of all the plants that I had, I would say Tabasco plants are a lot like sweet potatoes. They take what feels like forever. So we're going to transplant this, and I'll put it in a pot for right now. Ultimately, I have plans on turning a certain area behind me over into like a perennial garden, but we're not quite ready for that yet. Anyway, so I'm going to pot these up and overwinter them, so hopefully in the spring when it's time to rock and roll, it won't take so long. Alright, one potted up Tabasco pepper, getting ready for 2024. Hopefully he makes it. Okay, so this is my drip irrigation setup here. I got my hose and I got my timer here, so we'll start it. We'll go through this another day on how to use this, but we'll just turn it on for right now. Alright, so I hear the drip irrigation. Let's take a peek and see if there's anywhere that seems concerning. I might take a peek right there. But otherwise, I don't hear anything super concerning. So I'm going to take a peek at that, see if that looks alright. And assuming that looks good, then we could get our transplants in the ground. So this fall, we are growing lacinato kale and champion collard. I haven't grown either of these before, but they have a profile that's pretty impressive, so we're going to give them a shot. So taking a peek to know how we're going to plant these. So in row spacing, 2 to 3 feet, we already have that set up. Seed spacing every 12 inches. Let's see, the same thing here, every 12 inches. So how I'm going to plant these is I'm going to have my collards up towards the front that gets more sun exposure throughout the day, and it tends to be a little hotter. I'm going to plant these on the far side of the garden that gets a little bit more shade in the morning, tends to be a little cooler over there, and we'll see how they do this year. This is what my lacinato kale looks like as a transplant. And one thing about transplants, so I actually did volunteer at a farm nearby here and helped with planting out tomatoes and a bunch of their other stuff. The trays that they get from the growers looked horrendous. Like, I really was like, these things are on the verge of needing to be thrown out. And we put them in the ground and they grew out and they produced like nobody's business. So when it comes to your transplants, don't feel terrible if they end up looking a little rough and ragged. They'll bounce back once you get them in the ground. So for getting my transplants out, I end up straddling my rows because I have my beds designed to be about yay wide on either side. And I'll just come through here. I just use a plastic knife, poke it through on the side, and then pop it out all as one. Okay, so I got the collards and the kales in the ground. What I did was alternate a pattern because you could have 12-inch spacing, but you have to have a fair amount of space with the kale or collards to grow out in either direction. To maximize space, I did it on a diagonal pattern. The spacing for my drip irrigation is every 12 inches, so it's probably about, 24 inches almost between these two. And then on the diagonal, ultimately what my plan is last year I grew out the broccoli and I grew out my collards, but underneath as they grow and you start taking the lettuce leaves off, or not the lettuce, but the leaves as you start eating it, it ends up creating kind of a gap on the ground. So I'm going to come through here, and I have an emitter here, I have another drip irrigation emitter here and here. I'm going to plug in my lettuce as these grow up, and then that way that'll kind of work as my ground cover and maximize what I could plant in this little area. I put shade cloth over here. This side gets the hottest and the most sun throughout the day, so I just put this over here just to give them a little bump because it's still going to be pretty warm the rest of the week. And all this is some hoops that I ordered off of Amazon. Let me show you underneath here. Just some plastic hoops. And the shade cloth isn't actually shade cloth. This is the banner from an event at one of the churches, and it had a date on it, so it's not like they could use it again. They would have just thrown it out. But I ended up repurposing it, and it works real well. And you'll notice around my transplants that there's kind of a white powdery material around them. What I end up doing with my transplants is I go ahead and I just put diatomaceous earth around them. It's cheap insurance, It really has no adverse effects on your plant. I mean, this is literally what the anti-caking agents are in your food that they put in there anyway. So it's not like it's going to hurt you or, but it's good insurance to make sure you're not getting bugs just immediately going to come and decimate your little transplant with 1 or 2 leaves.